You are listening to WTUZ Radio Podcast. Welcome to WTUZ Radio Podcast. I am your host, Rhonda. Okay, so we are doing an update on our series, Gateway to a New Economy, that we have been doing. I don't even know if this is the third year. Nonetheless, this is our first follow-up on Gateway to a New Economy from a podcast perspective for what they are calling 2023 on this Gregorian calendar. And I literally, family, jumped up out of my bed when I saw this come across my news feed on what went on this weekend that they are silently not talking about. Wow. All right. Here we go. Central banks try to calm markets after UBS deal to buy Credit Suisse. Okay, so this came out March 19th. Okay. And this is from Reuters. Some of the world's largest central banks came together on Sunday to stop a banking crisis from spreading as Swiss authorities persuaded UBS Group AG to buy rival Credit Suisse Group in a historical deal. So I'm just going to stop right there, and we're only, one sentence into this update. This is 2008 all over again, fam. Like we told you was going to happen. Like we also told you that it was going to really, really jump into high gear in 2023. Only difference this time than what they did in 2028 is going to be twofold. First difference is they're not putting it a part of their major script / disclosure media presence. Okay. So they'll put it on other media outlets because they know most of the populace are not going to read those things. They're not going to pay attention to these things. Okay. But anytime they want to run a script, they always use their mainstream media. Okay. So now, in my defense, I wasn't glued to the news this weekend, mainstream media news, or even my alternative news. But something this huge, I would have expected Monday morning, their mainstream media picked it up. And they have not. Last time I checked, as of this morning, they're running a different script. And it's certainly not this financial crash that is literally going on. Okay? So that's the first thing. That's the first difference. They're not running this 2023 financial crash on mainstream media like they did the 2008 crash. But make no mistakes about it. They are still notifying the public via the financial sector and articles online. Okay, that's the first difference. Here's the huge thing that's going on. Like we have been telling you all since we started the series, Gateway to a New Economy. This crash, this 2023 crash, will be the last crash regarding the U.S. dollar, okay? And all other currencies around the world, okay? So once they get through with this, they're going to be standing up a new ether/digital solution, okay? So we'll get into it at the end from a spiritual and astrological perspective. So let's get through this article. UBS will pay 3 billion Swiss francs for 167-year-old Credit Suisse and assume up to 5.4 billion in losses in a deal backed by a massive Swiss guarantee and expect to close by the end of 2023. But let's continue. Soon after the announcement late on Sunday, now again, you all, oh my gosh, this is what made me jump up, fam. You mean to tell me the Federal Reserve, them, met behind closed doors on Sunday? I'm assuming, they use Zoom, like the rest of us have been using. So you're trying to tell me that they were behind closed doors on Sunday. But let's continue. The U.S. Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, and other major central banks came out with statements to reassure markets that have been walloped by a banking crisis that started with the collapse of 2 regional U.S. banks earlier this month. So I'm going to get through this and then we're going to get back to these dates. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ futures were each up by 0.4%, both giving back some earlier gains. New Zealand dipped at the open and Australian shares opened with a 0.5% loss. The safe haven dollar lost ground against the sterling and the euro, but was up versus the yen. Pressure on UBS helped seal the Sunday's deal. So again, you mean to tell me they went behind closed doors this Sunday on the 19th? Want y'all to remember that 19th date. Let's continue. It's a historical day in Switzerland and a day, frankly, we hoped would not come. UBS chair Kelleher, told analysts on a conference call. I would like to make it clear that while we did not initiate discussions, we believe that this transaction is financially attractive for UBS shareholders. UBS CEO Ralph said there were still many details to be worked through. I know that there must be still questions that we have not been able to answer, he said, and I understand that, and I even want to apologize for it. In a global response not seen since the height of the pandemic, the Fed said it had joined with central banks in Canada, England, Japan, the UK, and Switzerland in a coordinated action to enhance market liquidity. The ECB vowed to support Eurozone banks with loans if needed. Okay, so the ECB, for those of us here in the Americas, that's the European central banks. Okay. So that's equivalent to our Fed Reserve. Okay. So they pretty much came out and said that they're going to give loans if needed, adding that Swiss rescue of Credit Suisse was instrumental for restoring calm. Federal Chair Jerome Powell and U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen welcomed the announcement by the Swiss authorities. The Bank of England also praised the Swiss. The greater risk environment for financial leads to husbanding. That's interesting. That's why I paused. Because, we kind of understand what they used to use that word for. But okay, Rhonda, I'm going to continue. Nonetheless, the greater risk environment for financials lead to husbanding of capital and risk-taking. Less and more conservative investing and lending, and inevitably lower growth, said former chairman and CEO of Goldman Sachs. Oh, God, God. You mean the Goldman Sachs? You mean the Goldman Sachs? It was front line and center player in the 2008 financial crisis. Yeah, I guess you would know. Because we've been here before, right? Haven't we been here before just recently? CEO of Goldman Sachs, weren't we just here in 2007, 2008? Let's continue. I guess you would know. While some banks have been hung up by poorly managed, concentrated risk, at this point, family, we should be able to see the patterns. We should be able to see the patterns. And we should also be connecting on the spiritual level what it really means, and also understand that it's part of a spiritual programming as well. So I'm going to slow down because I know that may have been a lot and it may have even been confusing. We should start to see the patterns. This stuff is not accidental. This is the 2008 crises all over again. Only difference is, like I told you all, they're not getting on mainstream media, which is pretty much what 99% of the population rely on, and making this a big issue. Okay? So it's a script, fam. It's a script. Let's continue. We'll get on the spiritual side in a second. So while some banks have been hung up by poorly managed, concentrated risk, the overall banking system is extremely well capitalized and substantially more tightly regulated than in prior challenging times. Yeah. So that's the story you're going that's the story you're going to stick with. Because if you were so tight with this game, if you were so, we don't want this to happen again, how could there be poorly managed, and how could it be concentrated risk? Just these two words alone cancel out, and this is where I literally caught you in a lie. It cancels out that you had more tightly regulations. Let's continue. The Swiss banking marriage follows efforts in Europe and the United States to support the sector since the collapse of the U.S. lenders, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Now, I'm going to stop. Let me tell you something, fam. 2008, you had all of the big players, right, involved. But even with the big players involved, overall, wasn't it some kind of small players that had to get bought up? Y'all remember something called Washington Mutual, WAMU? Remember that? Because, see, I remember that. So WAMU was a smaller or mid-size. I don't want to say smaller. It was a mid-size player. Okay? Just like Silicon Valley Bank. Like I said before, follow the patterns. It's the same game, fam. So you had WAMU in 2008, 2007, 2008. Countrywide Financial. Okay. So 2023, we have Silicon Valley and Signature Bank. But let's continue. Some investors welcomed the weekend steps, but took a cautious stance. So these weekend steps, because see, I remember, that's just me, because I follow patterns. I remember you did a huge weekend decisioning in 2008. Okay, when you pretty much told JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, all of those mid-sized banks, they needed to buy. And here is the money to do that. Here is the quote money to stabilize everything. Yeah, fam, that happened on the weekend too. And they also made the decision who was going to flop, okay, who wasn't going to make it up out of that, okay, which Lehman Brothers was one of the ones, which is huge. That was a, long-standing institution that didn't make it up out of that 2007, 2008 financial crisis, okay? So if you really want in-depth detail on the whole 2007, 2008 financial crisis, on actually what happened, the behind the scenes meetings and all of that jazz, and how the total quote financial crisis happened, there is a movie called The Big Short. You will enjoy the movie. They did very well. But pay attention when they break down, because they broke it down several times on how the domino effects happened, led up to that crisis. Okay? So this is a good time, if you have not seen that movie, to go watch that movie, because that is telling you the script of what they're playing off today. Let's continue. Provided markets don't sniff out other lingering problems, I think this should be pretty positive, said Brian Jacobson, senior investment strategist at Allspring Global Investments. Okay, I don't know why you put him up in there, because who cares? But let's continue. Problems remains In the U.S. banking sector, where bank stocks remain under pressure despite a move by several large banks to deposit $30 billion into the First Republic Bank, an institute rocked by the failures of Silicon Valley and Signature Bank. On Sunday, First Republic saw its credit rating downgraded deeper into junk status by the S&P Global, which said the deposit infusion may not solve its liquidity problems. U.S. bank deposits have stabilized with outflows slowing or stopping and in some cases reversing, a U.S. official said on Sunday, adding the problems of Credit Suisse are unrelated to the recent runs. Remember we talked about bank runs and stuff last year? I don't think people understand how huge it is for there to be a run on banks. So, a U.S. official said on Sunday, adding the problems of Credit Suisse are unrelated to the recent runs on the U.S. banks. He's lying. U.S. official, you're lying. It has everything to do with the run on the U.S. bank. And that U.S. banks have limited exposure to Credit Suisse. Again, if you have not seen The Big Short, put it on your list and get it watched up, fam. And you can refer back to it as the 2023 banking crash happens again. The FDIC, meanwhile, is planning to relaunch the sale process for Silicon Valley Bank, with the regulator seeking a potential breakup of the lender, according to people familiar with the matter. Decisive intervention. The intervention comes after two sources told Reuters earlier on Sunday that major banks in Europe were looking to the Fed and Europe's central bank to step in with stronger signals of support to stem contagion. But I thought that the U.S. official said that Credit Suisse problems had, they was unrelated to the U.S. bank runs. So if that's the case, then why are European banks tapping on the shoulder of the Federal Reserve in the U.S. and their European Central Bank to come on and look at this if they're not related? Okay. The euro, the pound, and the Australian dollar all rose by 0.4 against the greenback, indicating a degree of risk appetite in the market. Bank stocks should rally on the news, but it's premature to signal all clear, said Michael Rosen, Chief Investment Officer for Angels Investment of California. Oh, really? Angels? Oh, okay. Well, it is in California, so all right, I'll give y'all a slide on that one. UBS Chair Calm said during a press conference that it will wind down Credit Suisse Investment Bank, which has thousands thousands of employees worldwide. UBS said it expected an annual cost savings of some $7 billion by 2027. So let's just replay this script. Go watch The Big Short if you have not. Because in The Big Short, they talk about that weekend meeting with them banks sitting around the table. And the bank they said, well, you just going to have to take this hit. You're going to have to take one for the team, Lehman Brothers. I know you've been big balling and shot calling for hundreds of years, but you going to have to take one for the team, baby. So just like that, Lehman Brothers, which was considered a staple and stable banking institution in the U.S., was gone. Thousands out of a job. So that Lehman Brothers collapse is equivalent to this Credit Suisse. Okay? UBS said it expected annual cost savings of some $7 billion by 2027. Yeah. The Swiss Central Bank said Sunday deals include 100 billion Swiss francs in liquidity assistance for UBS and Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse shareholders will receive one UBS share for every 22 Credit Suisse shares held, an equivalent to 0.76 Swiss francs per share for a total of 3 billion francs, UBS said. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wow. So basically, if you had stocks in Credit Suisse, for every 22 shares with this deal, you're getting one UBS stock. I don't know what the price of Credit Suisse stock were for share. I highly doubt this deal is going to bode well for the investors. Because in order for it to bode well for the investors, Credit Suisse share price had to be so high that it would match the price of one UBS share. And I highly doubt that. So that means investors lost a lot of money on this deal. A lot of money. It also means what they are telling the public is that UBS picked up Credit Suisse for very, 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 very cheaply. Let's continue. Credit Suisse shares had lost a quarter of their value last week. Okay, so prove my point. Shareholders got taken to the quote, quote, cleaners per se. They lost money on this deal, big time money. The bank was forced to tap $54 billion in central bank funding as it tries to recover from scandals that have undermined confidence. Under the deal with UBS, some Credit Suisse bondholders are major losers. The Swiss regulators decided that Credit Suisse bonds with a notional value of 17. Woo! Wait. Sorry, fam. I didn't read through all of it. So, oh, child, wait a minute. Under the deal with UBS, some Credit Suisse bondholders are major losers. The Swiss regulator decided that Credit Suisse bonds will have a value of $17 billion, will be valued at zero. Child, baby. Clutch invisible pearls. Clutch invisible pearls. So $17 billion worth of investment vanished. So they're saying they're going to value them bonds down to zero of the debt, who they would be better protected than shareholders in a rescue deal announced on Sunday. So again, they cut this deal on Sunday. All right, that was it, child. That was enough. Because I was like, woo, baby, that's a lot on this. Great job, Rudders. I was kind of checking around on, because this ran across my feed first, which made me sit up. So I just did some other quick checking to see if the other news media outlets were breaking it down like this. Weren't even close. They weren't even close. And I didn't even make it through this entire article, because I was looking for other publications to talk about the Fed Reserve and the European Central Bank involvement. That's the meaty stuff I was looking for the other mainstream media publications to pick up, and they didn't. What they just picked up was the fact that it was being bought. Okay. Wow. So let's talk about these dates. So they met on Sunday, huh? Let's talk about the spring equinox family. Now, they met on Sunday, right? Let me just flip back to this article. They met on Sunday, right? See, I don't want to lie on people. They met on Sunday. That's what we kept seeing all in this article. The decisions made on Sunday. On Sunday, that tanked, but also on Sunday, they was making decisions. Let's talk about the spring equinox. So Sunday was the 19th, right? Right. When was spring equinox again? Oh, wait a minute. Looky here now. Spring equinox was Monday the 20th. Let me flip back. But they met on Sunday? What I'm saying is, fam, what I've been telling you all, the purpose of me even starting this particular series, Gateway to a New Economy, is to really closely look at the financial side of things and put them in direct correlation to astrological things, which really, because you have to go beyond the astrological, which really we're talking about deeper energy shifts. Okay. So just a real high level recap. The real quote new year starts spring equinox. Okay. So bear with me for those that you already know this. Okay. This is for the ones that are really, really into the financial stuff, but they may not get the correlation between the seasons. I want them to understand this, not only the correlation with the seasons, but understand what clock, what time they're really following. Okay? New Year's began spring. Spring equinox is really the new year. All ancient civilizations celebrated their new year during the spring equinox. And that is because springtime represents new growth. Okay. Meaning everything in the winter was dead, all this, that, and the third. Now it's spring, stuff starts blooming, etc., etc., etc. Okay? You can even watch the birds. And you'll see birds heavily mating during those spring times. Okay? The folks that are running things behind the scenes, the hidden hand, whether or not you want to call them the elite, because even the elite that we say are the elite aren't really the elite. That's the elite they want you to know as the elite. But the hidden hand, the 1%, because that's what we call them, the 1%, they're really running stuff. And I have consistently said they follow a separate calendaring system. Okay? Let me bring this up. All right, let's bring this up. Okay, so those of you are familiar with this, just be patient. This is the true calendar that they follow. And I'm talking about the 1%. Okay. So, those that are not familiar, this is the astrological clock. Okay. And so these symbols going around it represents what we're calling the zodiac. Okay. This is the Pisces era. Okay. So when you hear folks talk about ages, this is what they're referring to, this clock. This particular realm is being run by this clock. Okay. So I'm not going to go into like the really, really techie stuff. Okay. Because we've done that on the live shows and in the series that we did. Okay. And shout out to Vibes Cosmo for that wonderful work that he did putting together even how the skies work in this, okay? Shout out to Brother Odell, who also broke down and lined up perfectly how the 1% / hidden hands financial institutions, I mean, literally things that the public have no idea, the IMF, the World Bank, the banking of international settlements, the Vatican. He lined it up perfectly and showed how events and the decisions that they are making also relates to this clock. We have told you throughout this series why the financial system is shaking up the way it is shaking up. We told y'all almost a year in advance, and I'll even give it 6 months. But I think it was literally a year in advance. We told you inflation was coming. We explained basic inflation, and we also explained hyperinflation. And we told you why those things were happening, because it's about this clock. Each one of these ages, which we're calling astrology signs, represents energy, fam. Represents energy. Okay. When what they've calculated as time moves from one of these astrology signs, because this is Pisces, to another, major things happen. And those major things happen because the energy is shifting. Okay. So if you hear them talking about New Age, the Aquarian age, all they're talking about is going from the Pisces age to the Aquarian age. Okay. So the Pisces age represents the fish. Okay. That's why Jesus is associated with the fish. Okay. So for those of you that rock with me, bear with me. I know you know this. Bear with me. And I usually don't do that on these particular podcasts, but I have to keep merging this gateway to a new economy to the astrological so you can really understand what's going on. So Jesus does not represent the fish because he fed however many or so people. No, Jesus represents the fish because of this clock. And you can literally go through the Bible and those major events, the rulers, the governments, the financial system, all line up to this clock. And everybody that knows me knows I'm not a Bible person. Okay? I can't recite them like that off on, well, go to this chapter, that chapter. I only know the highlighted stuff. But I do understand patterns. I understand patterns. Because if I can figure out your pattern, I already know what behavior that you're going to give me. So I'm going to say that for the slow ones in the back. If I can figure out your patterns, I already know what behavior you're going to display. And then based on that behavior, I know what energy you're putting out. Okay? So that Bible, from my understanding, I remember them talking about the calf and the bulls. I also remember them talking about the ram. Okay, I think, so this is Taurus. Up in that Bible, they talk about the bull. Okay? Now, don't quote me on it. I think it has something to do with, was it Moses? Child, somebody. So forgive me up in advance. I think it was, could have been Abraham. Don't quote me on that. Abraham could have been associated with the bull. But when you hear them talk about the bull or the calf in the Bible, they are talking about the Taurus. This is the age they were talking about. So even within these ages, you can even, if you pay close attention to the patterns, even in the ages, they have events jump off within the ages that still follow this clock. So then they talk about the ram in the Bible. I think that's Moses, but again, don't quote me on it. I ain't no Bible person. Okay? But what you're going to see up in that Bible, what I do know now, I may be confusing Moses and Abraham, so forgive me up in advance. But what I will tell you, I want you to pay attention to patterns. Because in that Bible, Moses, leader of a nation. Abraham, leader of a nation. Nations, plural. Nations, plural. Their rulership falls under these astrological signs. This clock. And then, because it hit me when I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. If that Bible is following this clock, and these leaders are associated in these particular ages / astrological signs, so that means every time we go through, get to another age, that's also change in leadership. Okay? So either Moses or Abraham. Now, baby, I can't remember which one is which. I don't know if Abraham was the what's her face cattle situation, and Moses was the ram. I think I'm right, and I'm okay if I'm not. But now I know, baby, we know who represents this fish, right? That's Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. And don't the Judean folks follow the Torah? They say the old laws. I want y'all to understand. They follow the old laws, so they're following in these two ages, okay? They're following that particular energy, that particular rulership. The whole Jesus thing, I want y'all to be clear. The whole Jesus thing was the Pisces air. Okay. See, I don't know about y'all, but I follow the patterns. So now you hear them talking about the Aquarian age, New Age, yada, 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 dada, 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 dada. The Aquarian age is always focused with water. Water or ether. So the Aquarian age, the New Age, and even you hear folks talk about reset. Okay, shout out to the mud flood community that talk about the resets. Because you're correct. You're correct. So all of those mud floods that you talk about, baby. And we're only going to stick to the Piscean era. Although they tell you about the catastrophes, the resets, and shout out to the mud flood community, because some of y'all so cold with it, you picked up that even those events that they describe in the Bible, them floods, them plagues, they were resets. But what I am telling you, mud flood community, is they are associated directly with this clock. So back to the Piscean era and the mud floods, and we like, wait a minute, that's not lining up. You're not telling us everything. The population, you're telling us that these are the original people, and they're not. And I'm looking at these structures, and you're telling me that it was built da 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 here, but it ain't. You're telling me stuff that's ancient and it ain't. But yet the true ancient stuff is sitting right in our face. Okay? And all of these floods that happen, and all of the fires, etc., etc., etc. The Piscean age. Okay? So they told us we're moving from the Pisces age to the Aquarian age. We've already moved there. I told y'all we've already moved there. We're literally in the Aquarian age. And I started up this Gateway to a New Economy series to not only put people up on game regarding the financial system, but I wanted you to understand what's really driving it. It's this. It's the clock. And I told you this push to digital currency. It's about this clock. Since we are no longer in the Pisces era, the Jesus era, which is, by the way, why people, the planet in particular, are coming up out of religion. Because this is about energy. Each one of these ages or astrological signs are associated with energy. Okay? So because we move from the Piscean era into the Aquarian era, you got to change out that currency. Currency, current. So in other words, I can't run on Windows 10 no more. Got to bring you to Windows 11. Okay? So we got to get away from the paper currency. We got to go digital. Why would it be digital? Because water is really ether, air. Air is just a different density than water. Okay? So just again, if you don't remember anything else out of this, understand when they stand up this digital currency system, because they're going to stand it up. Okay? And you could go back through the other videos in this particular series. I went into very much details. I showed you evidence of them testing it out. I showed you evidence of them putting it into play. We just recently had, was it Nigeria? Yep, I think it was Nigeria. Bank runs took place. Get it? Hint, hint. Bank run just happened in Nigeria, a couple weeks ago? And then the U.S. has a bank run. Now Europe has a bank run. But none of it's linked. Yeah, right. See, I follow patterns. Okay? So again, they're going to get rid of currencies as we know it. It's going to be digital. And the reason for that is this clock. Because since we have moved into another energy, ether energy, water, since we've moved into the Aquarian age, they gotta match the currency. And digital currency is ether. Okay? This is really why, again, the banking crisis, the whole 2008 stuff is happening all over again. All right? I told you all, when this stuff starts going down, that when they stand it back up, it's going to be digital. And they're going to use this particular banking crisis as the reason it should go digital. Okay? And they've been doing many tests on this digital stuff because Nigeria was one of them. Nigeria changed their folks' currency and bank runs occurred. And they even admitted that they were trying to get people to go digital. So it's not about the actual currency itself. It's about this clock. It's about energy. Okay? They have been preparing. This is why I always say the 1%, they plan hundreds of years in advance. They have been prepping us in the Pisces age to transition over to the Aquarian age. This is why in the Pisces age, you had bank cards / debit cards, which more people use their bank cards or credit cards versus physical cash. And I know I'm certainly guilty of it. Hell, I just did it. Like, oh my God, I forgot I'm out of town and I forgot to go get money. I usually always had some cash money with me and I forgot to do it because I use cards. So those cards were prepping us away from that in the hand hard cash. Now, some of my millennials may remember the Z's. I know y'all, baby, I know y'all don't remember. Okay. But see, back in my day, Gen Xers, I know you know. Now, you know and I know that we know when banking cards or debit cards became a thing. Okay? So we was youngins. By the time we stepped in adulthood, that's what it was about. It was about that debit card. But see, Gen Xers, our parents remembered when there was only 2 ways to pay for things. Well, 3. Because I don't know, Gen Xers, my parents didn't have credit cards like that. They never believed in them. But they only had 2 ways. Cash or check. Cash or check. Cash or check. Cash or check. And if you want to go back, because that's the baby boomers, okay? Gen X's parents are the boomers. Okay? The boomers' parents are the silent generation who actually lived through that 1933 crash. So Big Mama and them, okay? And they only played with banks for big things. Like if they took a mortgage out or if they bought a car. Because the way Big Mama used to save money, the way I remember her saving money, it was cash. Okay? So even them envelopes, I remember chopping things up in envelopes. Okay, this is the vacation envelope. This is the bill money envelope. I forgot the other envelope. Oh, grocery money and household items and all that. And then it was always a petty cash that only she knew about. That was the silent generation. They were cash. So we're still in the Piscean era. And if you're cold with it, you can go back and research during this Pisces era and see what type of currency and all of that jazz was taking place during this era. And you can also go and see how those currencies lined up to changes in power, which usually meant changes in war. And shout out to the mud flood communities, because you can tie those wars to resets. So my point being, when I tell you that the 1%, I told you they plan a minimum 100 years in advance. That's minimum. Them 100 years in advance, that planning that are going on, that's who they have, who we think the elite are. And I'm not going to name the names because I don't want to get this censored. Those are the people that implement those 100-year plans. They're given those plans by the true, real 1%. Because the true, real 1%, they plan by the ages. So that's thousands of years. They understand thousands of years the major energy shifts that have to happen, i.e., resets. And they understand within these ages, you have to prepare to shift the populace consciousness over to the new age. See, they don't go by the Gregorian calendar. Our ancestors, our ancient ancestors, went by the astrological clock. And that is why the 1% does the same. So they already have it lined up when it's time to, quote, quote, to go from one age to the next. They've already been doing miniature resets and also changing the culture and changing the behavior and influencing the consciousness of the people to move them to another age. This is why in the Piscean age, we also saw the explosion of computers. Okay. So Gen Xers, we're the generation that ushered in the computer age. And it was ushering us into the computer age to get us comfortable with the technology of computers. And then they start speeding it up. Speeding it up. Because us Gen Xers that were in computers back then, you used to be able to keep a computer for, good 4 or 5 years. And then the time frame kept getting shorter and shorter. Okay? And the reason that happens is because they keep updating the equipment and updating the software. So what they were doing was getting the population's consciousness used to computers and digital. Now, to the computer nerds, and this is going to be the Gen X computer nerds, because there was a big debate when they start introducing the technology of the cloud. I remember sitting in meetings, and it was literally them making decisions on whether or not they should start putting information/data in the cloud. And I remember having an interesting conversation with someone, an exec. Well, we can't do that. We can't just put data in the cloud. I know millennials. I know Z's. I know, baby, this may be shocking to you. This may be shocking. But oh yeah, It was a big thing in the tech world to put data in the cloud. Because the concern was security. How are we going to secure that? That's not secure. And I remember having this conversation. And I said to this person, you're going to have to do it. He kind of looked at me. What are you talking about? I said, because that's where the technology will go. Now, I don't know how you access your stuff. But last time I checked, I can get to my data as long as I have an internet connection. Yeah. Because that data is sitting in what? The cloud. And then they got the populace ready for the cloud by Apple. Yeah, you Apple users. I used to be an Apple user when it first came out. When it was good. Okay, that's a jab. You know, us Android and Apple users, we go at each other's throat. Apple's better. Android is better. Apple used to be the bomb back when it first came out because didn't have any data breaches. So just let me roll that for the Apple people. I got to take a jab at you Apple people because you didn't got out of hand with your attitudes. Apple ain't the superior technology. But back when Apple first came out, oh yeah, it was all that in a bag of chips, baby. Let me tell you. It had 0 data breaches. And so again, the tech heads were telling the execs, Apple has that iOS has no data breaches. That's sound technology. They weren't ready to adopt that technology. And the reason they gave was security. And we kind of laughed. What do you mean, security? Do you understand that their security, they have no data breaches? But yet, Microsoft and them, we got to keep doing patches. So it is the safer technology. Now, I'm talking about you Apple users. Don't get it twisted. I'm saying when it first came out and it was good and I used to use it. But Apple also issued out the cloud. That was the first adoption to the public regarding the cloud. Because you could take that Apple device, you can set up your profile online and be able to get to the cloud. And I ain't gonna lie, it was tight. Although I had told them execs that's where it was going. But Apple was the first ones to bring the cloud to the populace. So where you could set up your profile online. So if you had an iPad, if you had a Apple phone, if you had a MacBook, desktop, you can get all of that same data on those devices. And guess who was behind? Microsoft. See, that's why I was rocking with Apple back in the day, and they had no data breaches. So the market followed Apple with the cloud. Microsoft had to totally change its interface to match Apple. Okay? Microsoft had to go to a cloud base. Had to do that to compete with Apple. But I'm telling y'all, the real reason any of that jumped off, it was preparing the public's consciousness to go to this Aquarian age. Ether. Okay? Nothing in this particular realm, the way it has been tuned, the frequency it is sitting on. This is the reason I like this particular graph. Because you can see in the center here, it's got the tetrahedron, this sacred geometry. This runs everything. Any and everything that's going on is related to this. This is about energy, family. Pay attention. Pay attention to patterns. Because if you can look at patterns, you can understand the behavior. You'll know the behavior that's coming. Let me correct. And let me go back and say that again. If you look at patterns, you can predict behavior. You can predict the future. And you'll also understand how controlled this is. Okay? And that's even in our personal life. You sit back and you look at the patterns. Don't matter what somebody tell you, mainstream media and personal life. Don't matter what somebody tell you, I'm following your actions, because your actions tell me your patterns. And if I look at one pattern and see how you behave, and I see you repeat that same pattern with that same behavior, that means I can predict what you're going to do. Okay? Don't matter what you'll tell me with your mouth. Your actions tells me the true story. Same with the mainstream media is what I'm trying to tell you, family. It does not matter, quote, quote, matter, the separate story, okay? I'm trying to stay focused here. Doesn't matter what they're telling you in their mainstream media. Follow the patterns. Because if I'm trying to deceive you, I'm going to tell you what I think I want you to hear, or what I want you to hear. We'll just look at human nature, just real quick, because it's the same thing. If I'm trying to deceive you, I will tell you what I want you to hear. But my actions are going to show what I truly mean. See, because my actions carries forth the energy. I want to put the rules to you with telling you what I think I want you to hear or what I want you to hear. But here's my true motive. This is why the world keeps getting fooled. Because they don't pay attention to patterns. They don't. They base it on what someone says to them. Cough, cough. Mainstream media. They're also not paying attention or don't truly understand how the energy is currently being programmed, moved on the planet. So they keep missing the patterns. This is no better than a bad relationship. Say one thing, but do another. Say one thing, but do another. So whose fault does that become? If I allow you to keep saying one thing and do another. If my consciousness is so blocked that I allow you to just keep saying something to me, but your actions don't line up to what you say to me. That means I'm not in tune with your true energy. So I'll just roll that for the slow ones in the back. What does that say? If we allow for someone to keep telling us something, but their actions speak differently, and we don't catch it. What that means is we're not in tune to their true intentions or the true energy. Because the true energy are those actions and the words you said were just a precursor to keep you stuck, to not see the true energy, which are your actions. This is no different, fam, than how you navigate in your personal life. Hopefully you're navigating in your personal life. You always be tuned into energy. It's about actions. Don't matter what you say up out of your mouth. Although I hold people accountable for that. Don't get me wrong. I hold people accountable. It's the energy for me, though. Because you can say one thing, but when you do, and it don't line up, we got a problem. We got integrity issues. This is no different, family. I'm going to stop here because I could get more spiritual, but we won't. We'll hit it up on Thursday. I definitely wanted to keep you up on game. They have started making major decisions on the eve of the spring equinox. This is the 2007, 2008 financial crash all over again. They are not broadcasting it in the media like they did in 2007, 2008. They're just doing it here and there talks. But make no mistake about it, this is a financial reset. Make no mistake about it, this is a financial reset. And just like 2007, 2008, remember when the banks got bigger? When they claimed too big to fail, this, that, and the third, 4, 5, and 6. But you had the big banks buying up the mid-sized banks. This is the same play all over again. See, I pay attention to patterns. All right? But the difference is this time, quote, quote, no pun intended, they're going to get to a total financial reset, which will be digital. And the only reason it's digital because we are in the age of Aquarius, ether. Okay? So I hope this helped you, fam. We're going to keep this series going. I knew that a lot was going to jump off in 2023. We'll see. I think we're going to see more of these mid-scale banks get bought up by the larger banks. And that's all going to be part of a reset, okay? And see what kicked off this digital currency stand-up that they're going to do. Not only the cryptocurrency 2008 stuff, but this financial crisis that we're, quote, quote, having, which is really a crash. This is really a 2008 crash again. Pandemic ushered it in. I told you all that from day one they mentioned it. I told you. This was about a financial reset, but I also told you it was really about this Aquarian age. That's why that pandemic situation, that particular situation with the crown, okay, you should understand what I'm talking about. Got to talk around it for censorship. Why do you think it had that crown on there? Yeah, it's dealing with your chakras. So getting the public prepared, going from the Pisces era where the Jesus energy ruled to the cloud ether. Okay? So we'll be here with more updates. This is going to be a rocky year for 2003 from a financial perspective. There's going to be major changes. Okay? But make no mistake about it. Always remember this clock. Always follow patterns. Because in those patterns, your actions, them repeated actions, you can predict the future. Okay? No different than personal life. Anybody can tell you anything, but the actions are the true behavior. So with that said, fam, I hope all is well with everyone. We'll be back with Gateway to a New Economy because, child. All right. right. So that's what they had for y'all for spring equinox. Another financial collapse, okay? So out with the old, in with the new.